Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Today, I'm joined by Jerry Bray. How do I say your surname actually? Brazie?
Brazie, you got it right. Yep.
Brazie. Yeah, I thought so.
Yep.
Jerry, I don't really know where to start with you because you've got the backstory, you've got the build up, the rags to riches, and now you're just like driving good cars, living the life. So let's go back to the beginning, and I want to find out who you are, what you're about, sort of what floats your boat, and I think that would be really valuable.
Okay. I am the seventh child of 9, and my parents had 6 kids by the time they were 22 years old, if you can imagine it. So my mother had a 0-year-old infant and a 5-year-old kid, and 6 kids in total.
Wow.
She slept every other day. So that was the older brothers and sisters. And then 7 years later, I came along, and they didn't want me to be an only child, so I have a little brother and a little sister. And so there is 9 of us in total. And, grew up poor, government cheese, government food, lots of powdered milk. So that was kind of the way we were raised. And then since there was such so many years between the family, we were really kind of latchkey kids, me and my little brother, a lot of time by ourselves, nobody really watching us. I was stealing food as an 8, 9, 10-year-old. When you're poor and you have older brothers and sisters, that are so much older than you can imagine a house full of teenagers, and then a 6-year-old, and the food just didn't last very long, and so that's what my brother and I resorted to on a regular basis, and so that's kind of it encapsulates as quickly as I can my background and my upbringing is largely a street kid. By the time I got my first job at 11, I paid taxes as an 11-year-old, and I bought my first meal with the money that I made, $17.35 on my first day, and the guy handed me a check.
That's
I went
pretty
down
good
to
for
the
an 11-year-old.
Yeah, I went down. Well, I paid taxes out of that. I went down to the local market, cashed the check for all ones, and got a nice big fat wad of bills because that's what I saw rich people have.
Yeah.
So it was right then that I said, I just got to work, and I just got to keep working. So I've had a job ever since. I've never been sick a day in my life. I've never missed a day. I'm 51 years old. I've never missed a day of work. And I've had 20 to 25 jobs, and every job I've taken has been a better job than the one that I left. And I was a street kid at 17, living in Skid Row with in a $25 a week hotel, hookers and heroin addicts sharing bathrooms. And that was what I was doing at 17. But the thing I did so I have no education. I have no idea what anything is or was. I didn't know how business worked. I didn't know what entrepreneurship was. I just knew how to survive, and survive meant work. Work meant food. And that's kind of my background right up until I got into my 20s, and actually went to work, and then in my late 20s started thinking about business. But my childhood was 4 suicides, 5 murders, all by the time I was 21 years old. I didn't think I'd live to be longer than 21 years old. It was the height of the drug epidemic, crack in particular. I lived in the worst parts of town, and so that was just my reality. And I was able to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that a lot of my peers followed. No drugs, no alcohol, things of that nature. I was very, very independent, and the entrepreneurial spirit, although I didn't know it at the time, I think was a big part of that. Because can I cuss? I don't remember.
Yeah, man, go for it.
So I never gave a fuck what people thought about me. I never cared. So that peer pressure, you could put all that peer pressure on me you want. It just wasn't going to work. And so in a way, that was my entrepreneurial spirit as a teenager. Because as you get out and you start your own business, trust me, the only way to be successful, you can't give a fuck what people think. And so that was me as a kid.
Yeah. My obvious question is, why do you think you made it out of that? Why do you think you made it out of still being alive now, whereas so many people don't? So many people still have that hunger and that drive when they were that young, but life doesn't perhaps go in the right direction.
I'll tell you, decision-making plays a huge part, as I alluded to a minute ago. Decision-making plays a huge part. And because when you're a street kid, when you come from that, no one's telling you what to do. And this is pre-internet and podcasting and having access to people like me and you and thought processes and all of that. You're on your own, and you're surrounded with the people who think the same way that you do, that life has beaten up the same way that it has you. I didn't know anybody that wasn't on drugs or hadn't been molested or hadn't been in or out of jail, or wasn't an alcoholic, or whose parents hadn't killed somebody. And I didn't know anybody as a 17-year-old that didn't do that. And so you're surrounded by that, and there's no option for you that you ever see. It's only this dark road that you have in front of you. And I just call it digging ditches, right? I just assumed I was going to dig ditches my whole life, but that wasn't for me. I knew instinctively, I can't even point to why. I knew instinctively that I was going to be better than that. And so I was very careful about my decision making. I did not have children. That was critical. I didn't have kids till I was 28 years old. That was critical. And I was very independent, and I didn't mind working. And I mean working at a level that probably most people can't. It didn't bother me, and I actually enjoyed it. And I understood that work equaled food. That was pounded into me as a very young kid, and so that's always been part of the psyche. So I think good decision making. I didn't do drugs. I didn't do alcohol. I never started. I was very violent, so I had a lot of run in with the cops and things of that nature. But nothing so significant that it took me aside or derailed me from just kind of continuing forward.
When did you start moving that from that employee working, doing those jobs, getting those tasks done, getting food on the table, to starting to build this, I'm going to use the word empire, that I guess you've built over the years?
Well, I was 28 years old, and so I was sitting at my desk. I took a job at a transportation company as a dispatcher. Here's a quick story about me. I think this is really important. I got a job as a driver. I thought, I can drive. I'm 22 years old. I'll take a job driving. That's cool. And so I got a job as a driver, and the dispatcher was terrible. And so I went to the owner of the company after I'd only been there about 6 months. I'm a 22-year-old, and I was like, look, you're paying that dispatcher all this money. She sucks. Let me do it for you. I'll do it for you for 6 months. You pay me $10 an hour. You're paying her $45,000 a year. Pay me $10 an hour. I'll show you how I can do it. If at the end of it I do a good job, then you can pay me $45,000 a year. She didn't necessarily end up paying me $45,000 a year, but she paid me a whole lot more than $10 an hour, or more money than I had ever earned. But I worked 12 hours a day in one of the hardest jobs you can imagine, a stress-filled nightmare, taking care of everything without complaint, weekends, nights, it didn't matter what it was, for $10 an hour. So that investment in myself has always been there, and that was the earliest pieces of kind of getting a return from my work and the way that I work. So now jump forward to 28 years old. I'm managing this company. I'm sitting in my office. I get an offer to start a company, and I didn't know what I was looking at. Financials. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I didn't have any sense of anything. And I had an epiphany, and the epiphany said, literally, I could tell you exactly where I was when this hit. The epiphany hit me straight in the face, and it said, if you don't shut up and listen, you're going to be doing this when you're 50. Now, I'm 51 years old, and I've told that epiphany story 1,000 times, but literally that stuck with me all this time, and that was where I finally said, all right, you're this hotshot kid, you've survived all of this, your ego's massive, we need to bring in a big dose of humility. A big ego is important to do what we do, because you got to be wrong every day to be right? I want everybody, a good manager lets somebody think it's their idea, but gets them to do what they want. So it's important to be wrong every day, as long as everything gets done the way that you want it to. So it takes a big ego, but a good dose of humility. And so for me, that happened at 28 years old when these people approached me. Subsequently, we went ahead and did that, and here I sit, 30 years later.
How did you manage going from being sat in the office to owning the office?
I can't stress enough, which I always try to do on all of these podcasts, because I want people to hear my voice and hear what's possible. That's what I'm all about. And I can't stress enough, Stephen, when I say I didn't know shit, I didn't know shit. I did not know what an entrepreneur was. So the access to information today there's so much more of it. Yeah. I had no idea. I had no idea how a profit and loss work. I had no idea about human resources. I knew zero. But I also knew that if there was a hill on my right side and a mountain on my left side, I'm going left. right?
Yeah.
Because fuck the hill. Who cares? Some old lady can walk up the goddamn hill. There's nothing to that. I'm going for the mountain. And so that was always my approach. So I'll tell you how I learned it. I was never intimidated by it. It never.
Mm.
It's all of those butterflies that people get, I suppose. And I'm always telling people, you got to just do it. It's cliche, but you have to just jump in with both feet and learn while you're doing it. You can't learn before. You just can't. You can be told before, but you can, until you've ever done it. There's nothing to account for experience. And so I was never scared of that. And I was just got off the phone right before I talked, before we got online here. And I just had this conversation with a couple of guys. I stole food to eat when I was a kid. I never lose that perspective ever. And so at 28 years old, when there's an opportunity to start a business, I just, okay, that sounds reasonable. And I jumped in 100%.
For sure. Let's talk about like modern day then in terms of starting businesses. Do you think it's because your background and your life experiences obviously paved the way for you in terms of your mindset and, going up those mountains? What about nowadays? And when you see people start businesses, you can start business online in 10 minutes now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think that the state of entrepreneurship, I think is, if that's what you're asking me, is it's been bastardized, and I mean that to say that it's been made a celebrity. And when we look at celebrities, life looks so easy and life looks so simple. And so when you're looking at Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook or the CEOs of Google or correct, any of those, and you see them in private jets and you see them, they're 28 years old and they've got more money than God, and you go, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. And that is not by any stretch of the imagination what an entrepreneur is.
Wait a minute, you mean to say that I don't just have to post 3 posts on Instagram stories and I've made it?
Man, Steven, it's so funny, my friend. I just was having this conversation online a couple of nights ago with a guy about it. Sorry, that's not what it's going to take. I was arguing that the internet, while it can be a part of the marketing and setting up, and I'm talking about local businesses, which most all businesses are local. Yeah. If you're starting up a business, the thought process is exactly what you said, and it's far from that. You got to go get 300 no's. You have to go sit in front of people and be told what you're doing wrong. You have to be able to handle rejection. And then finally, after 300, you get one yes, and then you're off and running. And that's the way that it works. So I think that people don't understand how difficult it is. I think popular culture has made entrepreneurship a celebrity, and it's not.
Do you think there's... Because in the UK here, you can actually now get a degree in entrepreneurship. I have no idea what that is. Like, how do they teach you for 3 years about being an entrepreneur? Surely you just go out there and do it.
Yeah.
But that grit and that 300 no's, do you think people are ready for that? Do you think people can do that as much anymore?
I think that I think as long as people, if you're serious about it, I think that if you're a serious person, and you're serious. I have this saying. I say, if you're drunk on a Tuesday night and you're telling me you're chasing success, you're not a serious person, right? So if you know what you need to do to chase that dream that you want, you should be realistic about it. The problem is all of the drop shipping and the Forex trading and all of these other things that you're inundated with. You can't go on the internet to look for advice without getting inundated with somebody wanting to start you in their affiliated marketing program. And that's just not entrepreneurship. That's not what business is. But then you know how it is. You click on the one, and I was heading here to go get some good advice, and I ended up trying to sell tchotchkes out of China. And now I'm nowhere, and I just spent my life savings.
Exactly. You obviously didn't do that. So, 28 years old, first proper business, let's call it. Now 51 years old. What's going on in your world now? What's your businesses? What are you focusing your time on?
So I've got, I'll just say I've bought and sold probably a dozen businesses over my life, and I've been involved in ones I'm still active in. I have a large transportation company, 125 employees. I have a development company where we build lots for homes, and I also own a good bit of commercial and industrial property. So those are the 3 businesses that I'm in currently. Along the line between 28 and 51, I mean, I own gas stations and car washes and convenience stores and woodworking companies and management companies. I mean, I you know, anywhere I thought I could make a dollar, and that it was either local to me or at least that I could see it, I went for. I don't have any rentals anymore, but I've had home rentals. I built houses. I mean, I anywhere I thought I could make a buck, or I should say, anywhere I saw someone else making a buck, I figured I could do it too. I should say I was right a little bit more than I was wrong doing that. But like I never was scared to go give it a try. So that's kind of where I am today, and kind of what I've owned over the decades.
Amazing. For you now, though, why is it so important that you're bringing your online personality out? Because those businesses you just described are very offline, very
Yes.
traditional businesses, which I love. But now you're doing podcasts, you know, YouTube videos, amazing setups. What caused you and what prompted you to do that?
I'm trying to get, and I mean this. So a few years ago, I've always been kind of I take care of all of my people. I have employees that have worked for me for 25 years.
Amazing.
So yeah, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah,
And so a few years ago, though, I thought I need to branch out a little bit more, and I need to start being a little more charitable. And again, being a poor kid, I want to help poor kids. And so at Christmas time, I went to adopt a family, and I found a group here that would introduce me to families. And my stipulation was I had to meet them. And so 3 out of the 4 meetings they set up with me, middle of the day on a Wednesday, I go to meet the family, and the dad's sitting there playing video games. And so for me, I was like, I can't. I mean, you know, the poor kids, but I can't give to that. Dad should have 2 jobs. You know, that motherfucker should be out doing what he's supposed to be doing, not sitting here begging from me. And so that really turned me on it. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to teach people, because that's something I can live with without just giving it away and trusting somebody else to just take my money. And so I said, I'm going to donate my time and my effort and my energy and try to do it right and reach as many people as I can. And that's kind of what brought me online, was just my want to get the message out. And people, I don't think they understand. You can message me. You got a question about your business, I'll help. I mean, look, I'm not going to do your business for you, but you know, where would anyone get access to somebody like me? And I know that sounds self-serving, and I really don't mean it that way. I wish I had me when I was 28 years old and launching my business to say, hey, give me 5 ideas or 1 idea. What should I look out for? What should I look out most for? It probably would have saved me tens of thousands of dollars and years of time. So that's really where it comes from. It's just, I want to try to give back. I'm not selling I'm trying to write a book, but I'm not selling a book. I'm not selling a seminar. I'm not selling coaching or any of that other bullshit.
$10,000 product that's now 97 cents for the next 24 hours.
That's exactly right. You're not going to hear the first 100 people, you guys. That's just not my program. And remember about those programs too. And this is really close to my heart. Don't take advice from people who haven't done it. If you don't know the person and they haven't done it, you cannot learn this out of a book. You cannot be 26 years old and start coaching businesses because you watch Gary Vee. It's not going to happen. That's not the way that it works. You have to put in your time. And people like me are out here. You just got to come find us. We're happy to help. And I learn too. I get to live vicariously through new business owners. I love it. Because I kind of lose it over 20, 30 years, right? And so it's a give and take. It's a win for both sides, I think.
Do you think people are brave enough to ask for help?
I think that men in particular are terrible about it. I think that women are much better at it, I will say. Men seem to be more risk-taking than the women are, but the women will ask 5,000 questions, and a dude won't ask a single one. One of the things that I teach is there are no stupid questions. They're just stupid people, right? Asking a stupid question makes you smarter. It doesn't make you dumber, but we're very uncomfortable. I teach my kids. I have 2 sons and a daughter. They're 23, 20, and 21 and 18 now, but they've been taught from the day they were born, be the dumbest person in the room. I will ask, Stephen, I will ask you the dumbest fucking question you've ever heard in your life and not think twice about it. Billy's my producer. This is all, I know how tech works. I love technology and all the rest of it, but I don't know how tech works. So I'll ask him the dumbest question you can imagine 3 times and then tell him to get a crayon and write it out for me because I don't understand. That's part of the humility to go with the big ego. It doesn't hurt my feelings to ask stupid questions. And it's in those stupid questions that all the information is found. And so men are very reluctant to do that. And this is a game of being wrong. That's what entrepreneurship is.
Definitely. The men aspect's really interesting because, again, in the UK, there's a big wave of getting men to speak up a little bit more and be heard and allow themselves to feel, I guess, or be human, whatever we want to call it. But in terms of business, where it's a little bit more cutthroat traditionally and a bit more brutal, perhaps, when, if you're putting your life savings on the line or going for your dreams, how is it that, especially in your circumstances, how is it that you stayed consistent? How is it that you stayed optimistic and that you managed to pull through those dark times, even after 28? Because let's face it, those 20 or 25 odd years, however long it was, weren't all sunshine and roses.
Sure. Perspective. I never lose it. I've been to Africa twice in my life. I've been to China 5 times. And I did a post last night. I believe it was on Twitter that I put it up, or I have it ready to go. I can't remember if I threw it out there. Talking about perspective and how important it is. And the guys I know families. I've seen them in 15 by 15 tin shacks in 120-degree weather, a 5-gallon bucket that they're walking a mile to empty into a public toilet twice a day with a dirt floor, smiling at me when I came up to meet them. And these tin shacks go on as far as the eye can see. Unemployment is 70%, and they have 0 options. If you can go do that and then come back here and complain to me about risking your life savings, I just don't think you're a serious person. I don't think I don't think you are able to evaluate, self-assess, be introspective, and really have that ability to see what's possible. The other thing I'll add to it too, I always say I wish I could figure out a way to plug into the back of my brain and let everybody look through my eyes for 2 minutes, because if you could, you would see probably a way different perspective than anything you imagine. I think that we all think it looks so insurmountable. And in fact, I think it's very much the opposite. It's every single day winning while losing. So if you can handle the losing, but from each loss comes a win. And I know everyone hears this all the time, but it's true. I come to work every morning and think I'm not going to have a job. And at the end of the day, I conquer that every day. So then I wake up and go, oh, shit, I want to go do that again because that felt good. And I'm still here and I'm still kicking, and it beats the hell out of doing the 9 to 5.
Yeah. But is the 9 to 5 needed?
Yeah, sure. And I'm the first to say this is not for everyone. What I try to do, because I'm not trying to sell you something, I want to tell you as raw as I can how hard it is. The flip side to it is I've changed generations, Stephen. I come from generational poverty, and I've changed that for my family. So I've amassed enough wealth, and I have put together enough assets that my children's, I don't know, maybe they'll snort it all up their nose, after I'm dead. But at least that first generation. But there's generational wealth that I've generated. I suppose if anybody hears my message, would you think that that's worth it, coming where I came from, the 20 years of toil and grind to change your generations? Another reason why I'm doing this online. My great-great-grandkids are going to be able to listen to their grandfather rattle on about what it takes to be successful. Imagine how cool that would be.
Do you ever worry about your great-great-grandkids or your kids losing the perspective that you've got that got you that got them that legacy?
Oh, it's a great question. God, yes. I mean, as tough as I tried to be on my kids, my one son doesn't eat ice cream.
What? Who doesn't eat ice cream?
Who the fuck doesn't eat ice cream, right? And so you're like, only in a fat Western world can you have somebody that doesn't eat ice cream, because I would have hit you over the head with a lead bar for an ice cream bar when I was a kid. And he doesn't eat ice cream. So it is not lost on me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a really fast story. I belong to a CEO group, and in this CEO group, I'm the kind of the outlier. Now, everybody's got their businesses, and we all struggle the same way, and business is very relatively the same that way. But I'm the outlier in that I have the specific background. And so I was worried that this is years ago, my sons had never been punched in the face. And I was legitimately worried about it because I didn't understand, because so much of who I am comes from that. And here these guys are mostly all older than me, very successful, and they're laughing at me across the table. There's 8 or 9 of them when I'm telling them this, and they're like, Jerry, we've never been punched in the face. I went to, a middle class upbringing, a rich upbringing, a good upbringing. My parents paid for college. I went to a state school. I went to a national school. And I quickly learned that you don't have to live through the hardship that I had to be successful. You just have to be disciplined.
For sure. I think there's a lot of people out there that tries to chase their past story to create their future.
Yes, that's very well said.
They really hang on to it, which I really value, that you have an amazing backstory, but what you're doing with it it's not just like, oh, look at me, I had such a bad traumatic childhood, or whatever we want to call it.
Yes.
It's very much like, look, I want to build this for the next generation. I want to move forward, which kudos to you for doing that. And you are really, from what I've seen online of you, you are really like paving ways in a very different way, which I hugely respect, and I think it's needed. I really do. I think the in the nicest way possible. I think like the Gary V videos they're old now. They're not as impactful as they once were. Whereas your education and your experiences, that's what people will listen to, and that's what people are going to hang on to. Those like true stories of everything that you've been through is like, hats off to you, my friend. Really.
And I really do appreciate that. And the thing is, I don't feel anything special. And I want everybody to know that I'm an idiot. So I'm an idiot that I'm so dumb. All I know how to do is work.
Yeah.
And so I just go to work. Now, encapsulated in that work is all the information I need to do to be successful. But it's not like, I don't want to make it sound like literally I there is nothing special about me other than my work ethic. And that's the one that gets and ultimately that's the one that's gotten me where I am.
For sure. Listen, Jerry, one of my final questions to you is, something I ask everyone, and you're going to smash this, I know. But if you could give 3 tips to other business owners out there to help them, perhaps let's call it like, to help them create that legacy that you're doing right now, what would those 3 tips be?
You have to there's no legacy. I should let you finish the question before I go off. There's no legacy guarantee.
Yeah.
There's none. So you have to, I'll just give you the biggest piece of advice I can. There's no legacy guarantee. You have to risk. There's no reward, none, in this world without risk. But I think when we talk about risk, people don't understand how or how much control you have in the middle of risking everything.
Yeah.
So it's not like it just walks out the door the next day. There are always options, and it takes a long time. So you want to risk that to have that legacy and to change that lineage. It takes a lot of risk. And I think I'd probably just answer that question that way: is you just have to keep. You have to keep looking at deals. I'm always looking for opportunities. That's my key. And, I'll tell you one more thing real quick, Stephen. To anybody that wants to become an entrepreneur or is dabbling in it right now, all that Gary V bullshit about love what you love, that's all bullshit. That doesn't mean anything. I don't do what I love. I love what I do. Meaning I love the game of business, but I'm not passionate about transportation necessarily. I'm passionate about making money. I'm passionate about running a good business. I'm passionate about taking care of the people around me, but I'm not passionate about building houses or any of that. I mean, I do kind of like watching the big machine, push some dirt over, but aside from that, I didn't follow any of my passions. I grabbed hold of opportunities that came in front of me and maximized them so that I can go have my car collection. Now you're talking passion.
Yeah. Now it's what it enables, right? All that work enables the life. And that's what I think people forget a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I know people that are so focused on one thing that you're like, hey man, you might want to grab one of those opportunities as it speeds by. And they're, no, I want to grow roses for a living. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, fucking, I'll go get that one that just walked by you while you're got your head down looking at the roses.
You can't, to contradict your mission, you can't help everyone.
No.
And the sooner we realize that as people that want to help people, the easier we can then help other people.
I say, if I can just get one person, if I had, there's a couple of, actually it's getting a little bit wider now, that net. There's 2 or 3 or 4 people around the world, which is really interesting. This neat thing about the internet. But if I can just get one person that jumps, one kid like me that goes, 5 years from now, I heard this dude online and he was talking about he comes where I come from. At the time, it didn't take, but it sticks in the back of your brain and it's a seed and it starts to grow. And then pretty soon, 3, 4 years, 5, 6, 7, 10 years later, he's afforded an opportunity and he jumps at it. That's the time frame I'm looking at. That's the timeline that I'm expecting. Because you can listen to me now. You can't make changes like this overnight. It takes time and it takes discipline.
Patience.
It takes a massive amount of patience. There is no, I'll tell you the one thing I know about success. There is no get rich quick.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. If it did, people, I would be doing it. Right? Yeah, exactly. If there was an easier way to make money, I goddamn guarantee I'd be all over it.
And everyone would though as well. Everyone would.
Yeah. Then it wouldn't be special.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Even the premise of it possibly being a thing makes it impossible.
That's right. But it sounds so good. It's
sexy marketing, right?
God, it tastes so good. It sounds so good. It looks so good. And you do all that and I get a Lamborghini? No. No, you don't. You don't. You got to go toil and sweat, and it takes decades, and it takes hard work. That's the only way. I know 40 business owners. I know 25 millionaires. Every one of them are 100% dedicated, 100% in, have risked everything to get what they want, starting from scratch and building themselves all the way up, losing and winning to get the things that they have today. And now it looks cool, right? Because you can go to my Brazie's garage and you can see my car collection. And you're like, well, look at that motherfucker. He's doing really well. You don't see 2 decades, 1 decade of 18 hours a day and 2 decades of 15 hours a day. You don't see it, right? You just see the fancy car and go, oh, that rich guy, fuck that. So it's really, you have to be honest with yourself and really understand what it takes, and it takes a lot of patience. That's very good.
Yeah, and you've definitely got that patience, and you've got what it takes, and you're proving it, right? And you're walking the walk and talk the talk. And let's face it, I hope so. The car collection's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm one of those kids, man, that had the poster on the wall, of the car, and I'll tell you what part of what got me to pushed me to my success, as an example, using your passion to get you where you want to go. In 2003, Ford announced that they're putting out a Ford GT. Anybody knows the Ford GT, their supercar, Ford GT. And I told my brothers, I'm going to have one of those. Now, I couldn't have been further away in 2002, 2003 from having one of those than you and I are from each other right now. And yet I said, no, I'm going to do it. And I bought mine in the springtime of 2006. I bought a 2005 brand new Ford GT. So in that 2002 to 2005, essentially, in that time, I had a mark that I was shooting for. I had a thing that I wanted, and I did everything I could to buy that thing. And ultimately, I was successful in doing it.
Congratulations. Quick question on that. Did you then get the newer shape a couple of years ago?
No, I didn't. Those were very, very, very difficult to get.
Yeah.
And so
pure waiting list.
Yeah, I mean that's there's I'm a small fish in a big pond when it comes to that kind of money, and those people that have that kind of money. That's those there are not too many of those out there.
They are good looking cars. Listen, Jerry, I've thoroughly loved having you on the show. I would love to get you back on later in the year, and I feel like me and you could chat for hours.
For sure,
definitely. If you mentioned earlier about offering help and anyone that can get in touch, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, follow your journey, look at your car collection?
So if you go to jerrybrazie.com, Everything is there. Obviously on Facebook, everything is under my name. So you have the Brazie's Garage. You have my Jerry Brazie Facebook page. You have my Jerry Brazie podcast group, which is more like a business group. Send me a question to questions@jerrybrazie.com, JerryBrazie. A myriad of ways if you just go to the website that you can access this. I'm on Instagram at Jerry Brazie. I'm on Twitter at Jerry Brazie. And I'm very active on all of those. And so you'll kind of get it's mostly business. The cars are the car things, but there's some personal stuff thrown in. I'm a big pool player. I'm a big fan of snooker. For you guys there in the UK, a big Ronnie O'Sullivan fan. So I'm into pool and I have some other things that I'm into. So I think. But if you have a question, feel free to just Jerry Brazie, send me an email, and I guarantee you I will get back to you. I may not be able to question it. I may not be able to answer it, but at least I will get back to you. And I say that because I get them quite often where people just want me to map their world out for them. That's not what you're going to get from a mentor. That's not what you're going to get from somebody like me. I don't know what business to tell you to go into, but once you figure that out, I can certainly give you some advice on what steps to take going forward, or at least maybe push you over the edge to start looking.
Nice one, Jerry. You're a true gent, and I hope when you next come to London or I'll come over there and see you, we can play a good game of pool.
There you go. Now you really have my attention.
No, we'll make it happen. Jerry, listen, thank you so much for coming on Founders 365. You've been an amazing guest. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best. I look forward to seeing your journey carry on evolving.
Very good, Stephen. I appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. This has been Founders 365.